Go ahead.
Coach, Coach, the difference in drafting where you've had success like you've had now versus maybe trying to get better quicker, how much different is the approach for you?
We're just looking for the best players that help us win now and in the future, and so there's a balance there that you decide at all over the draft. I think, Duke's done a great job managing that upstairs with all the scouts and Mike and everybody, and so it's been a fun to be a part of, and I'm looking forward to see how it shakes out this weekend.
Thank you.
What's the biggest thing you get? Or I guess the days leading up, like at this point, like what's the biggest thing you're checking off the list as you get ready for Thursday?
Well, I think our guys feel pretty prepared. The scouting department's been doing this, all year, and the coaches have caught up these last couple weeks. So, you feel very prepared. I think if the draft started tonight, our scouting department's done a good job to be ready to go. But there's always last second. You got 3 days left, so you might as well use them for different scenarios and things like that. And it's just been fun to kind of go through the week and get everyone's opinion on things.
You ever been in a room where things change dramatically in the last week? Does that happen?
I don't think so. I haven't been in many rooms. This is my 4th year, being in the draft room like that. Usually you're a position coach and you go in there for the day that they talk quarterbacks, receivers, or whatever it is, and then you move on. It's steady here, very steady, very experienced. I think it's the right way to do things, and we always go into Thursday feeling very prepared.
Are mock drafts a little bit more difficult this year because there doesn't seem to be a consensus on the first pick in the draft? Never mind the best guy at each position. I mean, you look at quote mock drafts and guys are second pick of the draft, some drafts 32nd, not even in the first round, another draft.
Yeah.
Same guy. I mean, it's crazy.
I'm glad that's not my job. So it's I know people got to put the mocks out there to get the views and all that stuff, and it's fun to look at. It's fun, trust me. We all know people that look at them, and it's fun to deal with that way. But it's important how our organization sees the board and who's there, and it may not be the same for every club, but ultimately we'll be on the same page with wherever we end up. And the real mock draft starts on Thursday, and it's a fun thing to be a part of.
How important is the mock draft? Duke was talking about the mock draft the organization does.
Yeah.
He said it always ends up being worst case scenario because guys are picking people you guys are interested in. And so if you get a decent prospect in your own mock draft, you're in pretty good shape.
I think that's true. He's right about that. You sit in those meetings and you hear, who likes who, and it just, we might see a couple players different than some other clubs, but ultimately in our mock draft, that's where those guys go first. And so it's good because you get a chance to talk through a lot of scenarios now when you have unlimited hours to talk through it and have those conversations to where you're not doing it when you're on the clock with however many minutes on the clock, on draft day. So again, Duke does a really good job moderating that over the course of these last couple of weeks and this week and making sure that we're all confident going into Thursday.
How important in your mind is arm length, and particularly at corner and O-line?
It's always part of the discussion. I think it's one of the variables that's at your disposal, and then you measure that with a lot of other qualities that they have. So, those are just discussions that you always have about prospects, whether it's speed or height or weight or size or how the weight's distributed or what the arm length is. And, that can come up in a lot of different ways. And, it's just part of the drafting process is figuring out what you're willing to take at that spot on that day and who fits your team. And if you have weaknesses, how you can minimize that as best you can, or if it's a fatal flaw, and that can come in a lot of different ways, and we just talked through all that stuff.
How do you feel Jonah Williams played last season?
I think Jonah's an ascending player. So I thought he got better every week. Happy to have him.
Zach, I know you and Duke and the staff are close to the vest, don't want to tip your hand at all. How much does your scouting department look at what other teams are doing? How do you know what's a smoke screen, and how much does that play into what's going to be available when we get there?
Yeah, that's not a big conversation. Is what do we think other teams are going to do? Because any information that gets out about this time can be misleading. Could be truthful, could be misleading. You just never know. So, again, it's part of following your process, making sure that you feel good about the order you got your guys in, where they're going to fall at you. You try to anticipate all the discussions that could happen on the clock and have them now. Not worry too much about what we think other teams will do, because they may have a player fall that they didn't anticipate falling, and they take them, and that changes everything that you thought you heard. So we don't get too involved in that.
There are quite a few players in this year's draft that took a a little bit more mature, a little older, a little bit more experienced. How much do you think that has benefited the overall depth of the draft?
I think that part's hard to say right now. I think that's hard to say. I couldn't tell you all the players, you talk about in the top 100, what their ages are. That certainly comes up. You can see it on the screen, but I couldn't tell you if overall it's an older group than it was in the past. Where those older players have shifted, maybe they came back because they weren't top picks and they end up being in the 6th or 7th round. I couldn't tell you that, so couldn't really give you a great answer there.
When you were putting together the off-season plan, even before free agency, how important was the drop back passing element when looking at the offensive linemen that you were looking at, not only in free agency, but in the draft?
You've got to evaluate what's your scheme, what's the direction you see going forward, and how every piece fits it. And so whether it's a receiver, a tight end, an offensive lineman, how do they fit how we want to play football? Certainly we are a team that takes a lot of pride in drop back passing. It's one of the things we think we're really good at because we got really good players on offense that can maximize that. So it's always part of the formula. There's a lot of things that weigh into that, but certainly that's always a big part of it.
Zac, Duke on Friday was saying that he didn't feel an overriding need to draft a starter, somebody that even at 31 to come in and start right away. But in your discussions with him, when you're taking a guy at 31, are you looking at him being able to impact the roster very quickly?
That's always your hope. It's always impossible to predict because you don't always have the full grasp of the information. You do your best to go in the school, talk to the sources, get to know the player over the process. You certainly predict that this player is going to come in and have an impact, but you never really know until they move to your city. They're part of your organization. You see how they practice, they go about things. So again, we take players that we think will be a good fit for us, short term and long term, and then see how they fit in immediately. And in training camp, see how they pick things up, and if we think they can play a prominent role or more of a backup role. So again, it's hard to make those predictions. You hate to put that on 31 or 63, whatever it is, that this player, we expect them to come in and be a starter. We're picking them for a reason because we think they'll be a productive part of our team, and that's why we select them where we select them.
If a guy isn't able to test during the pre-draft process, or is having to work through maybe some surgeries, how does that go into the evaluation process beyond the pre-draft?
There's a lot of guys for a lot of different reasons, that do this and don't do that, and again, you just got to do your best to take all the information you got and make a decision on if you think they fit what we want to do. And so again, it's never going to be perfect, that you're going to have all the perfect amount of information and it's just going to be laid out that this is exactly what you're getting. Again, guys work out. Some of them didn't get invited to the pro day and they work out on different surfaces at the pro days. And so you just got to do your best to trust your scouts, trust the coaches that have gone out there and worked them out, take the information in and make the best decision on the kid.
Coach,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Alex.
Do you think Pete would be surprised at how exhaustive that process is, or the processes that you guys go through in evaluating each and every player?
It's possible. It's hard for me to know what information people have that we have, but I just know our guys spend a lot of time and energy, our scouts in their area, to where you really feel like they got a great grasp of the guys in there. And if we don't, you try to go back through over these last 4 months and let the coaches aid in that and try to go out there and talk to the kid and Zoom the kid and work the kid out and try to complete the circle on all the information. Would people be surprised? That one's hard for me to answer because I don't know. Different people may be aware of what goes in the process and some don't.
Thank you.
Coach obviously got a good feel with his scouting department. Like you said, your 4th year in this thing. How much is your comfort level grown and with it? And what do you think is the strength of this particular personnel department?
I think there's no egos. And so you're able to have conversations that see both sides of the ball, as it goes to a player. And I think it's always productive conversations. And so it's important to have that everyone feels comfortable speaking their opinion, throwing scenarios out that maybe someone else hasn't thought of, how they fit our team. They're always very productive conversations. You don't necessarily have to see in that moment eye to eye with somebody else on a prospect or the direction that we should go. And it's just good, healthy conversation. And so I think to answer your question, I've got a lot of respect for all the scouts we got in there. You respect the job they do and their opinions. The coaches then come in and have their opinions and have a really healthy dialogue and ultimately get to a place where everybody feels good about bringing players in the building, and everyone's happy that they're here and understand their strengths and weaknesses and how they can help us. And that's the beauty of being a part of the Bengals is everyone's got an opinion that can be heard, and it's never in a hostile manner. And we get a chance to talk through a lot of the strengths of each guy.
You mentioned it being healthy to have similar vision with the front office, but also disagreements and different talking points as well. Is that something you both try to figure out about each other just in your interview process in 2019? Maybe your similarities and differences in how you view the game.
I think it's tough to nail down just in an interview process. You certainly touch on that stuff to get just an overall sense of a philosophy. I came in really just having been a quarterback coach and a receiver coach. So the roster building, I'd done my best to give my opinions, but I'm sure they knew when I came in that it was going to be a work in progress as well. And I think that's what's so great about here is it's just helping everyone grow and continue to evolve. And not an expectation that you better have all the answers the day you walk in the building. We always knew it was going to be an evolution, and so far I think it's worked out well.
You reminded me there, like you said, you use your timeouts better in year 3 than you did in year 1. Is like scouting a defensive tackle another thing you do better now than maybe you did in year 1?
That's hard for me to say. It certainly you've got a better understanding of maybe what we're looking for on that side of the ball. And players you can reference them against players that we've had or lost or. You got a better overall feel for the roster, I guess you should say. So you know how guys are going to fit, how we utilize our defense personnel better. Same goes on offense, special teams. So I think in that way, everybody's probably improved.
Are you of the belief that everybody in the organization should generally be on the same page about a player when you're drafting?
I don't think that's possible for all 8 picks you got. You know what I mean? It's always someone's always going to have an opinion, and that's fine. That's reasonable. That's probably expected. Everyone gets a chance to say their piece, so you know. But ultimately, when somebody walks in the building, they're a Bengal, and we're all on board with it, and we're all going to make it work. So whether it was your pick or not, I think that's where we're at. It's always healthy when the player walks in and everyone's on board and going to make sure that we have a very productive player that helps us out.
Is there a big difference in feeling as you approach the draft this year, maybe as opposed to after that 2019 season?
Can you further elaborate?
This is just as you go through the process. I mean, y'all coming off Super Bowl as opposed to being, having the #1 pick. I mean, does it feel a little bit different knowing where you're at this stage in the franchise?
I guess so. Just in the sense you've just got a better feel for your team and what needs maybe hit us a little more in the head than maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I think just overall your experience each year with the players who have been here and how we can aid them and get the most out of them with other plays we can add. I think that naturally improves over these last couple of years.
Are you able to drill down and have a pool of players you think are going to be there? Or because last year you were probably able to do that at 5.
Sure.
But this year at 31, is it that much of a crapshoot, or can you drill down and say we probably have a shot at these 5 or these 10?
I'd say it's probably a bigger range than 5, to be honest with you. Yeah, you could pick a guy that you think is going later in the second round and have a great shot at getting him at 31, but it's probably a bigger pool than 5, I would say. But we were in this situation 2 years ago with T. Higgins at 33. It's just 2 picks off. We had the first pick with Joe Burrow. That one was an easy one to talk about. There was no indecision there. And then 33, you're playing the same game we're playing now at 31 of trying to predict and do our own, exercises to see who could be there at 33. It's going to be a decent range of players, I would imagine.
Going back to the 2020 draft, you just mentioned Higgins. Did you guys celebrate after realizing that Higgins was still on the board that night after playing?
Yeah, everybody felt great about that, and just the explosiveness he was bringing to the offense. And, you thought he was going to be gone in the first round. So it is nice to wake up and we know who we're taking. And so that's a good feeling.
Colin, go ahead.
Say the organization's been really receptive to offers to trade back from early rounds, even before you got here. In your mind, what's the bigger variable? Is it the compensation, or is it how many guys you still have on your board that you think you'd still have a shot at?
Probably a combination of both, and ultimately, we've got to expect to pick whatever number we're picking at. And then, again, I think that's where the experience upstairs really comes into play of the number of drafts, Mike Brown, Duke Tobin, everyone's been involved in, and the experience they have of trading when, for what value, why, way more so than I bring to the table. And so that's a fun process to be involved in for me, to watch them work, with the patience and the just the calmness is similar to what we have to deal with in games. This is their game, and it's fun to watch them work there. And again, I think the experience really pays off in those moments.
Sean, that is that.
Go ahead.
It would be disappointing to go home Thursday without a pick after sitting here all day.
It just depends on how it plays out, and that's certainly you just never know how it's going to happen. So, but I think you always got to expect a pick when your name's going to be called at 31, and then react from there.
Sean, that is this year's quarterback class maybe the big X factor, and how have you guys kind of had to anticipate for what might happen given the weird quarterback here?
I don't know that it's different than most years. Having been involved in the quarterback room, whether we were taking one or not, at everywhere I've been, there's always the X factor of how many first round picks are there, how many second round picks are actually going to go in the first. You just never know. And so I know much is made of it this year. To me, it's not all that different than other years throughout a year, 2013, 15, whatever it is. I'm just naming random numbers, but this isn't the first time, there's been maybe a lack of this is the clear cut number one. Here's the fifth guy. And so we'll just see how it plays out. It's impossible to make those predictions right now.
You had the COVID factor in the middle, but have there been any changes to how you structure your physical draft room, maybe coming out of COVID now in terms of where everyone sits and who's in the room and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's not my draft room.
Yeah.
I sit where Duke tells me to sit, and so I wouldn't say that there's many differences there.
Last couple of years, you drafted a lot of captains, a lot of guys that seem to love football, and you've had good drafts.
Yeah.
Has that strengthened kind of the resolve to stick to that formula?
I think it's been a recipe for success, and it's something you always consider. So again, we talk in depth about every player, and if they have issues, what are those issues? Are you willing to accept them? Again, that's part of the process that's been going on now for 6 months with the scouts and 2 months with the coaches, and you kind of make those decisions on who fits your team and who you want to bring into the building.
The involvement of the coaching staff, like you're talking about in all these meetings, I mean, it's kind of unique here in Cincinnati as compared to other places. Some places coaches aren't involved at all. Do you think that when you go cross-check, coaches, what their information is on the scouts, and then cross-check the cross-checkers and everything that goes along there, do you feel like you guys are more prepared than anybody, even up to college free agents, in terms of what you know about players?
I feel good about how we ended up. And it's again, it's impossible. I've only worked for 3 organizations, so I can't predict how we go up against all the other teams and how they do it. But I know that we believe in the process that we follow. We always feel like everyone's very prepared come draft night. There's a lot of work that goes into it from the scouts and from the coaches. And so, again, that's why, we really commit to this time of the player acquisition part of the offseason, and it's kind of nice how it'll shape up where our players come in the building after the draft. Because right now our focus is just on helping the scouting department with whatever resource we can be as coaches and helping us get the best players possible.
Your last several first-round picks have come from some of the best college football programs in the country: LSU, Ohio State, Alabama. Is that a priority, or is that just another data point? A guy coming from a winning culture in college.
It helps. It does not hurt because there's been a standard there. They've played in big games, been a part of big moments. I think that really helped us this year. Now we've got a team of guys who've all been in those big moments, so I don't have to reference any more players that played on other playoff teams, players that played for winning teams. It's always part of the equation. You want winners as a part of your team, and so you have to intangibly kind of research players and what do they have that's inside of them. But certainly now we have a team of guys who have been on the big stage, been in the big moments, and come out on top. And so now that'll always, I think, weigh into what we do. But again, players that fit us and will make us better is what we're going to end up taking.
When you personally are evaluating all these prospects and draft prospects in general, is film the biggest thing? Is it traits that catch your eye? Obviously, both matter.
Mhm.
But what's number one for you personally?
Yeah, I always enjoy just kind of reading the background and the intangible stuff that we get from the scouts, and then just watching the tape, and then you get a chance after you put all that together, you hear about the measurables and the intangibles and the traits and all that stuff, and again, it's all part of the information gathering process, and you determine is this the player we want with the information we have, and can we move forward? Can they help us win? Will they not? And you just have to make that decision.
You get to make the call? You get to make the call after they're picked?
Yeah, I do.
Are any of those calls especially memorable over the last 3 years?
It's hard because it's a phone call. And so when it goes quiet, what does that mean? Can they not hear you? Are they emotional? So it's always, I do enjoy watching the videos that we always have, of the players receiving the call, because it completes the puzzle for me on what happened. And so it's life changing. It really is. It's cool to be a part of, it's I appreciate it more when I actually get to see physically what the reaction was, and because sometimes it doesn't always make sense when I'm on the phone.
Do you have any draft day superstitions? That you do
No, I do not. I do not. I know Callahan's played on staffs where they go play golf Thursday morning, and so he's always pushing me to go play golf, but I can't make it work this year. But he might be out there playing Thursday morning.
Zach, you had a bunch of Bearcats in here. You went to their pro day.
Yeah.
On their staff in the lean years. Can you talk about how the perception of that program, guys coming out of that program, has
Yeah.
changed to where it is now?
Yeah, I mean, just talking to Coach Fickle, I mean, it's 2 pages worth of guys you're talking about, and it's just how impressive that is. And you're not talking about 7th rounders or free agents. You're talking about real guys that come in and impact your program immediately. And so, just the job that they've done, recruiting, developing, just creating that winning mentality and raising that standard there has been phenomenal to watch. And just they got a lot of guys this year. And I'm sure they're going to have a lot of guys next year and the year after that, just the way that they've done things. And it's really impressive to see.
Are they starting to fall into that category of Ohio State, LSU?
I mean, when you've got the number of guys they got that are in these top rounds, it's they're in the college football playoff. They're one of the top 4 teams in all of football. So absolutely, they're rising up to that level.
Is there an edge that maybe you get from having those guys in your own backyard? I know that everyone has the same film and numbers, but is there any advantage to that?
I mean, you've got relationships with those coaches. They got such a great crew over there, and I think they want to see us do well. We want to see them do well. So that relationship always helps. I don't know that them actually being over there allows us to see them any more than we would from a team that plays in Florida or California. But you certainly hear the names more just over the course of the season with however that information gets to you. So it's fun to follow and kind of be aware. And some of these guys, whether they were on the radar, when I was there, they might have been juniors or sophomores. So this is kind of a class where these names register with me. I can remember who went to school where, and Coleraine, Mount Healthy, all these guys are now in this class. So it's fun to kind of have some background on some of these guys.
What do you think of the way the receivers have gotten paid this free agency period? Do you think about that in terms of maybe how that could affect the way people draft them? Is that conversations that you guys have had, or is that too far to really in the future to really get a good feel for yet?
Yeah, I think we've got really good receivers. We all know that. That'll be part of the process over these next couple of years. But right now, we're focused on the present. I think upstairs, the front office does a great job of always managing the future as well. So that'll come up over the next couple of years. I'm sure that'll be very exciting.
Do you think the way that other teams draft receivers this year, or has changed maybe the market or the way people will be aggressive, or it's just kind of hard to tell?
Hard to say, because if you need a D lineman, but you're thinking about the future of the receiver market, and you're going to leave a huge hole there at 3 technique, then it's hard to win games. So it's hard to manage it all. That's Duke's job to manage all that. So I just enjoy being a part of it.
Did you expect to get drafted coming out of Nebraska, and what was that weekend like?
I was hopeful. Didn't have high expectations. Was hopeful that you'd get your name called in the 7th round. I remember watching probably more the 7th round than anything else. I think I played golf I wasn't expecting to hear anything the first couple of days. So the 7th round, you're watching. I remember John Gruden called me probably midway through the 7th round and started recruiting me. And so, he called, and I thought I'm getting drafted by Tampa Bay, and it was just to recruit me as a priority free agent, just so I can call plays in rookie minicamp, then cut me. So, I look back now, and it all makes perfect sense. And I even remember at the time, whether he remembers this or not, but I remember being in the hallway during OTAs. So it was in June, and I remember crossing paths. I was the 6th string quarterback. We only had 5 in the building. Jake Plummer was never showing up, but I was the 6th quarterback in a 5-man room. And I remember crossing paths with Coach Gruden one time in the hallway, and he said something to me. This was on June 15th, call it. Hey, no matter what happens here, you can play in this league. And I remember thinking, no matter what happens here, we haven't really practiced yet. So that was my first warning sign that I probably didn't have a bright future in Tampa. But it worked out.
That 7th round call you saw.
Yeah. So.
Coach, how much do you? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to ask you, Coach, kind of going off Charlie's question, since 2019, what do you think has been maybe the biggest change in the way you draft? What it might be, it seems to be less paperless, I guess. Is it more visual with, the really no physical board? Is it more stuff on a laptop?
Man, that's a great question. I couldn't tell you if in 2019 we had the magnets you put up on the board or not. But you could tell me better than I could. Now it's all on the computer. So maybe we did that in the first year. Maybe that's changed. I still have plenty of paper in my notebook. I promise you. So Debbie's always got her work cut out for her to get all that stuff lined up. So it's a mixture of both. And certainly. Again, you guys know me. I'm more notebook anyway, and paper bound. I'm probably a little more old school that way, but plenty of guys use the technology that we have at our disposal.
Is there anything you're doing differently maybe that you didn't do in 19?
No, I'd say it's the same. Yeah, no, it's. I like looking back at my old draft notebooks from 2019. Some of the players we have now, some of the players we play against. It comes up during game weeks, where I like to look back and see kind of what my notes were on a player that we're facing. So no, I try to keep it as consistent as possible.
Are you going to be looking at your notebook or your laptop?
My notebook. I don't even own a laptop. It's in my desk. I'm sure it's a laptop, but I don't take it off my desk. So I just got my notebooks.
Coach, what from the pandemic Zoom era served you well that you can use going forward as we kind of get back to normal?
Zooms. We use them all the time. For a variety of reasons. For example, we can do staff meetings on Zooms sometime, during the off season where maybe not everyone's around and guys were on the road for pro days and I want to do a staff meeting. I can do it on a Zoom. 3 years ago, I'd never imagined doing that. So there's just a lot of things that way, interviewing the prospects, that you can use that. And I think that's going to always be very productive for us.
Who's Brooks back at 31?
Brooks has a lot of questions and a lot of opinions. Yeah.
What's the hottest one?
I'm not going there. He's a locked vault right now. He's into mock drafts. You mentioned mock drafts. I don't hear the end of it.
How many has he done?
It's 20 a night. 2 months. He was really mad at me that immediately after the Super Bowl, I didn't have all the information on all the players because the year before that I did. I at least knew players come mid-February because we got in the Senior Bowl and I at least, could talk to him about guys. But he was just every single day, who'd you watch? So that's fun. That's the cool thing about being a coach's kid is they're into it and they enjoy what I do. And so it's good. They get the chance to come back in the building. It's been the first time in 3 years they've been here. So you'll see them out there playing basketball sometimes on Friday afternoon. So it's good to get the kids back in the building. He occasionally will watch a guy. It's more YouTube. It's usually laying in bed at night. I'll let him watch two guys. They get to pick what position and watch two guys on YouTube highlights, which isn't how we'd ever watch it, but I don't tell them that.
How do you handle a situation where you interview a guy face to face with members of the organization for 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever, sit down interview, and it doesn't go very well? Yet everything that you hear when you're gathering information from everybody at the school, this guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread. When you have that type of disparity, how do you go back and how do you go back and check?
Yeah, you do your best. Sometimes there's more information you can try to gather. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes maybe that's the end of the road on terms of how you're going to gain that information. But again, I always feel like you've got plenty of time. If you talk to a guy face to face at the combine and had that experience, you've got 2 months to do your best to sort out whether it's the scouting department or the coaches to gather as much information. Zoom them 2-3 more times. So again, there's plenty of time to always try to sort through those issues.
But you're going to trust your personal stuff more than relying on other people's conversation or opinion on a guy.
Yeah, and again, sometimes it's not perfect. Sometimes maybe you hear something and your experience has been different, and you know that you're never going to have the complete picture until the guy walks in the door and you have him for a year, and be able to answer those questions yourself.
Have you ever asked a question at that combine interview, asked a question that really you liked or really didn't like that made you do more research?
I won't give you a specific one, but sure, there's plenty of times like that. And the best, and this is not this year, this is over the years, when you got 3 guys that play on the same offense or defense and you can ask them the same question on a play and you get 3 different play calls and you're showing the same clip. and you never know who's right, So those are always the fun ones, that happen every couple of years. So
It's a great question you asked, though, when, because I think a classic question is, who on your team would you draft? Who on your team would you take with you?
sure, yeah.
And is that, I mean, I guess that can be illuminating too.
Yeah, they can answer that for a variety of reasons. It's their college roommate and they like him, or they think that he can help them win a Super Bowl. So you kind of got to get to the bottom of the answer.
We're a couple of weeks away from a schedule announcement. Are you excited about the likelihood of primetime exposure for this team, or as the head coach concerned about Sunday night road games, short weeks, and some of the things that go with that?
It's what comes with the territory. You win, and that's what's going to happen. I think ultimately that's a good thing, for our fans to be able to see us in a variety of different ways, whether it's not a home game. Our games here on primetime games have been tremendous atmospheres. I think of the Jacksonville game. I think of the playoff game against the Raiders. Awesome atmospheres. And so if we can replicate that, I think that's a good thing.
It may not be the superstar at the top of the draft kind of draft, but overall, top to bottom, in terms of depth of the draft, where does the organization feel this one is?
That's always an impossible answer for me to give, because it maybe is a little stronger at a position than it was the year before, and so some people may view that as because it's a primary position, it's a stronger draft or weaker draft, whatever it is. So I have always struggled with that. You just take it year to year. It is the draft that we have. Here's the strength of the different positions, and you just try to make it work as best you can.
When you guys rearranged the off-season schedule, did you call players or the leadership group or anything, or did you just tell them, "Hey, we're changing it and pushing it"? What was that like?
That's a decision we made as a coaching staff, and just felt that it was best for everybody involved, and coaches, players. Again, we're our coaches do go on the road and put in some good work, and so you just want them to be focused on player acquisition, helping our scouting department as best we can, and then once the draft ends, our players will be here and we can start that process.
I think y'all are one of two teams without mandatory minicamp. Is that correct?
I don't know. We don't have it. I couldn't tell you who else.
What led the decision to not having a mandatory minicamp as opposed to just the regular?
It's ultimately you can keep them here till 5 o'clock in a mandatory minicamp. We haven't done that when we've had the mandatory minicamp anyway. You can obviously mandate that the players are here. We'll just call it an OTA. It would be very similar to what we would do in a mandatory minicamp. Obviously, it's not mandatory, but we've always had great attendance from our players. I think they're about the right things, and so I still expect that we'll have a good turnout for the 6 OTAs that we actually have.
Guessing there wasn't much pushback on telling them that they can come a couple weeks from any players that did contact you about that.
It's been good. The players I've talked to, the feedback's been really productive.
Zach, when you get a face-to-face or the one-on-one and the brief opportunity you get in the draft process, are you a vibe guy at all? How much does that play into what sense you get from him?
That one's a hard one because I would say yes, you can feel certain guys, but then you also got to weigh in. Is this his 18th interview of the night at the combine? Is this his 10th, 30th visit that he's taken, and he's been on 9 flights already by the time he gets to you? So you do your best to weigh that information with maybe what people at the university say about the kid in terms of his energy, and so I think that's a slippery slope at times because you really don't know what the player's going through during those 30 days that you're dealing with them.
We asked Callahan this: who is the best prospect you ever seen on tape leading up to a draft since you've been in the league?
Well, for me specifically, probably Andrew Luck.
Why?
He was just a total package. You just interview the guy. He was size, speed, strength, football IQ, tangibles, background, productivity at Stanford. I mean, it was just the total package. Great player. But again, I was more quarterbacks, so that was kind of the world I lived in. But yeah, he was really impressive.
Joe Burrow.
See, I wasn't thinking about my own players. I was thinking about that would definitely be the answer. Yeah, that's a horrible answer by me because he absolutely is the answer to that. But I'm thinking more to guys I scouted as a position coach, I guess.
And that's how I meant it. So
Yeah, I revised my answer. It's Joe Burrow and then Andrew Luck. So make sure that's in your stories.
Yeah, before the people said about luck, right? Same reason.
100%. I mean, the guy never lost, shattered every record known to man. So easiest decision we've ever made. I think you all agree.
Callahan said Jamar Chase.
See, I can't. Why would I even answer this question?
None of them have a stake.
Yeah, they're all up there.
If it makes you feel any better, I asked Duke that question before Joe Burrow was drafted. He said Andrew Luck.
Okay.
So
Yeah, see, I think it's you start thinking back to not recent memory. It's more long term. So that's a trick question. I don't like that. It's not. You didn't mean it as a trick question, but I made it a trick question, and now I feel terrible.
I was relying on your experience in the last decade.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
Exactly.